everybody, and welcome to another episode of All Things Considered Franchising by Scotty Milas, powered by Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. All Things Considered Franchising is a podcast devoted to the entrepreneur, person who is seeking to diversify a business portfolio, investigating, researching franchising or independent opportunities, mostly in the franchising space. Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com is a consulting organization that I founded and run. What we do is help people build a business model and then introduce them to franchise opportunities that potentially fit, helping them through the process, learning, educating, validating, and of course, working on financing and the legal side. There are certain people that have a great story in the industry, and there are certain people that you probably just don't want to listen to. The guest that I have today, Zachary Beutler, is just one of those great stories. He's a founding partner for Horsepower Brands. I'm sure some of you would be listening to some of the other development stories on about Horsepower, the brands, whether it's Blingle, Mighty Dog Roofing, iPhone. I mean, you name it, it's out there. Really oriented to service. But Zach has just an interesting career path. I mean, and how he got into franchising, and it's always a story I never get bored hearing. So, Zach, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Milas. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, we've rubbed elbows over the years. And, I've always found your story fascinating. It's just one of those, I think everybody in the franchising space, especially on the development side or consulting side, should hear. And,
I always like to lead off with my favorite quote, which is good decisions come from experience and experience comes from bad decisions. I've been in franchising this is my 16th year, and I started when I was really 18. I started working for a company by chance that was in the nutrition space, and the story was the guy that owned those previously owned the top grossing GNCs in the country, was forced to sell them back and started his own chain. And I started there as a part-time associate right when they opened. Fast forward 2 weeks later, everybody quit in the store, and I became the manager by default. And I just said, well, how much does a manager make? And I remember they said like 80,000. I said, well, I'll do that. And did that for about a year, and then they began to franchise, and I knew that I wanted to do that. So I saved up enough money, and I convinced the founder to co-sign an SBA loan. I moved down to Florida, opened up my first location in Tallahassee when I think I was just 21 years old. And it was awesome. I mean, I did 1.3 million first year open, made more money than I never dreamed of. And then opened another location, and that one did about 900,000 the first year open. And then I opened up 2 more and then acquired 3. And within about 3 years from opening my first location, I had 7 locations on the path of doing 8 million in gross revenue, and really had no business acumen. I was great at finding people, coaching people, sales and marketing, but didn't really have the ops or financial background. And that really was a detriment. And I ended up building that business and then lost everything. It all came crashing around me, filed bankruptcy, had, really no money at rock bottom. And another franchisee at that time had 10 or 15 locations. And I never forget, I convinced him to give me equity on future brands for a fixed salary of $23,000, which was just enough money for me to pay my bills and live. And we took that business up to 68 locations and 40 million in revenue in 3 years.
Wow.
Did that for about a decade. Sold my equity there and left, and got into franchise development and consulting. And my partner now, Josh Skolnick, his first brand, Monster Tree Service, was the first brand that I really worked on. And we really hit it off, and I think, Scotty, I think there's people that you meet in your life that you're just destined to work with. And Josh and I have probably talked every day for 6 years, and it's been an awesome partnership. And we built that business and built another one. And then those businesses sold to private equity, and we decided to start our own portfolio company, which is now Horsepower Brands. And just over 2 years ago, we awarded our first franchise location. And as of today, we're over 1,000 territories across the country with 17 different entities.
Wow. First of all, I mean, Josh is just one of those guys, much like you, and you can see the synergies, and you can see why it resonated the partnership, or why the partnership is resonating and the success, is because, he's just an even keeled guy. I mean, he knows about franchising. He knows what franchisees need, and putting together horsepower brands, and then your expertise on that development side is really, like I said, resonated really well. And the first question I have for you, it's interesting because the FSO, and to our audience that really may not know what the term is, franchise sales organizations. There are organizations out there that their main goal is just development, sell, and that's it. Let's walk away. And I guess you have to be careful what you wish for, but as a franchisee coming into a system, you exemplify, at least in my opinion, what an FSO should be. And it's not only offering the franchisee and the franchisee accepting the franchise, but getting that person off the ground, from franchise rocket to your operations, marketing support, franchise rocket, getting people opened, the equipment, everything. So touch on that, and maybe share with the audience why that is important, because you can hear the enthusiasm when you speak to Terp and Carrie and Courtney and Joshua, but talk to the importance to our audience who are considering franchises, how important that is in somebody making a validated decision.
Well, I think you hit it on the head, is that the FSOs are really good at selling franchises. That is their goal, and they're good at it. And that's the future of franchising for sure. I mean, that's where, when you want to look at who's doing a lot of the placements, it's coming from those organizations, and they do a great job. And that's one of the problems, is they do a great job at selling locations. Being a franchisor is expensive, and it's extremely difficult, and it's stressful. And most people have never been a franchisor before, and they just fail to recognize how much capital and infrastructure is going to take to actually succeed when you're growing aggressively. And so for us at Horsepower, we're built like an FSO, and we can award a lot of locations, but we own the brands. So as they say as the FSOs say, we have to make the babies and take care of the babies.
Right.
And what we've learned is that when you are growing aggressively, there's not many vendors or partners that you can partner with that can support that type of growth. And so we had to either create, invest, or acquire our own vendors to maintain our growth trajectory. And what we've learned is, because we no longer have this triangle relationship of, well, it's the franchisee's fault, or no, it's the franchisor's fault, or no, it's the vendor's fault. For us, it's the franchisee's not getting the support, it's our fault. And so we can really focus on delivering a better overall experience, better support at lower costs.
And if I step outside the box here a little bit, it would seem to me that having all of those tools, and because character and personality kind of fits in awarding someone a franchise, and vice versa, someone investing in a franchise. So is it safe to say, Zachary, that you have the ability to kind of tie in that personality, character with the services of support, and kind of that extra checking point to say, yes, this person's going to fit in, or no, this person's not going to fit in? Because obviously in the due process, the due diligence of a franchisee and your due diligence, you're really connecting these people with all the different departments.
Well, we're very different as a portfolio company. Josh and I are the sole owners of the organization. We still talk to every candidate coming through the process prior to a discovery day. And so we're heavily involved making sure that we're bringing in the right people culturally. I think one of the biggest differences, Scotty, is when you think about an FSO, their goal is to sell franchises. But if they sell a franchise to the wrong person, hey, the brand's going to be gone in a couple of years anyways. For us, we live with that franchisee forever. So we have to make sure that, or the directors have to make sure that they're bringing the right people through the process to discovery day, and then the brand has to approve them. And if the directors keep bringing the wrong people, that brand president can walk right over to their office and go, "What the heck's going on?"
Right. Well, it's funny because I try to explain to my clients, that franchisors, their income, how you pay your bills, how you feed your families, how you hire the staff, is all based on royalties. Now, there may be a few little ins and outs along the way, but in most cases, your income is driven by royalties. And if you can't bring on board people who are going to generate sales, i.e., royalties to you, you know, the franchise fee is not really an income driver. It's to help to help and reward the people within those different departments to help the franchisees get open. I mean, I try to educate my people that they need people that can generate sales so you can generate royalties. And not to make this about you, but if somebody's generating sales, they're making money, but you're also making royalties.
Yeah, becoming royalty sufficient is by far the most important objective as a franchisor. And you're not going to have franchise fees forever. So you have to get the royalties to a place. And the more royalties you collect, the more the franchisees are doing in revenue, which should be dropping to their bottom line, which again helps sell more franchises.
Right. The service-based businesses, pre-COVID, I think, when pre-COVID and you look at, and then when COVID came in, everybody was like, oh my God, do we have our disaster plan? Nobody expected homeowners or people to go all of a sudden work from home and start fixing up their homes and everything. But the service-based business is still strong and continues to be strong, as far as a revenue driver for business owners, franchisees.
Well, I mean, my view on franchising is what better industry to get into than home services, which is extremely competitive yet very fragmented, where you can leverage franchising to bring an improved level of technology, an improved level of communication, with all better overall experience for the homeowner. What better place for franchisees to be successful than in that environment?
Right. Yep. And as far as the franchisee, the support, but one of the unique things about your brands, when you look at Bringle, Mighty Dog Roofing, iPhone, some of the other ones, and I was mentioning this to one of your development managers in another podcast that I was doing, is that I'm fascinated how you have more than one revenue driver, if it's not two or three, within each company. So when you look at Groovy U's, you're not just painting outside or inside. There's gutters, there's all the other things that you're doing. Mighty Dog Roofing, the same thing. So there's a lot of scalability within each brand, and then the scalability for a Mighty Dog Roofing franchisee to become a franchisee in another one of the horsepower brands. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when you look at all of our brands, the primary service line is already very scalable. So one of our requirements is the primary service line, and we'll just use Groovy as an example. Interior and exterior residential painting is a big business. That's a multi-million-dollar business opportunity. Now you add commercial onto that, gutters, the facelift program, you're in power washing. Now you're allowing for a franchisee to not just build have not just one focus, but they can diversify a little bit of their energy. And one of my favorite sayings is, focus creates wealth and diversification preserves it. So they can build a big business with a singular focus and then start to diversify these other service lines. And then
Interesting.
I think when you take what we're really pushing is multi-brand ownership, there are specific franchisees that are able to build their own portfolio underneath ours. That is going to build significantly more wealth for that franchisee than having one brand with multiple locations. That's something that the venture capital is really looking for, is something that can scale across multiple different service lines, leveraging the same real estate, same leadership team, equipment, but more manageable by being in the same area.
It's interesting because franchising, a lot of people look at the franchising industry, I shouldn't say a lot, but the people that look at franchising negatively look at it as a income grabber because of the royalty stream. And, as a consultant, when you're trying to explain that it's going to cost you a lot more money yourself than the 5, 6, 7, whatever it may be on royalty structure, then you throw in local and national marketing, it's going to cost you a lot more money than what a franchisor is going to be able to do in helping you setting up the systems, the best practices, what I call, quote, the menu. Any thoughts on somebody listening out there today that just, has thought about it, just, can't get past that negative, that whole thing on royalties. Any thoughts about that? Because you've been around. I mean, you've been around and and have built some great brands, and now with horsepower, I mean, you're making a lot of franchisees do well. I mean, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of people that are scared of that have never went out and built it themselves anyways, and are probably never going to. But
Good
for
point.
the people that have, and so we own a beef company, and we had to build that website ourselves from scratch over time. And we still spend every month 10 to 15 hours on the website. This is 3 years later. Franchisees don't have to do that. And then you look at some of the logistics and buying power. We don't have it yet. If we are a franchise, we'd have it. We'd have multiple locations, all pooling the resources together to get better rates on shipping. And so building a business from scratch is so much more difficult from a time, energy, and stress level than a franchise. Now take about all the time and capital wasted on creating processes that don't work and then have to go back to the drawing board. Having a franchise allows you to get from point A to point B at a much faster pace with less stress. And the goal is to create wealth, and the goal is to scale things. And if you're trying to create your own business, more power to you. But you can also do a franchise and do it a lot faster with less stress, and also get a great return on your investment.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, I'd like to ask this question because I don't want to think that all things considered franchising is trying to push people into the deep end into franchising all the time. And you have built a number of brands. You've seen your horsepower FSO grow. If you were going to pick one or two characteristics of somebody that should not get into franchising, what do you think they would be?
I think that there's people that get into franchising that don't have the grit to handle the stress. And owning a business is still going to be stressful, regardless if it's a franchise or not. But one of the things that we have really found is what makes a low performer. And the one thing that we can prevent is if you have a hard time making decisions without enough information, you're probably not going to be a very good business owner. As a business owner, you have to be able to make decisions without all of the information, stick it, go out there and get it. And if it's not the right decision, deal with that consequence. But some people just cannot get over that aspect of being able to make a decision.
Yeah,
And
the procrastinator, right? The person that just can't. It's not a question of making a decision. It is a question of not, but it's a question of not making that yes no decision.
correct.
It's not about should I buy this? It's just in simplistic terms, it's just yes or no.
Well, and so when you get, and if there's, and some people are just wired that way, and they're not wired to own a business, which is fine. They can still make a great living doing something else. But when you're wired that way, you would get into the business world, and all you're focusing on is the things that you can solve quickly and easily, versus, hey, you have to make a decision to take your business in one direction, but you don't know if it's right, but you got to make a decision. Those people just don't make the decision, and then by the time they need to, it's too late. And those are tough personalities, and we try to be as good as franchisor we can, but we can't run their business for them. And so that's somebody that shouldn't own a business. But there's people that look themselves in the mirror and go, I can do this with the franchisor behind me and the support that they provide. I know I can do this. Those are the people that go out there and they drive it home.
Yeah, it's interesting. Running out of some time here. Great information, but I have to ask you about Beutler beef, something you're running with your wife, or I should say your wife is really probably taking the lead on this because you're busy with horsepower. But tell us a little about it. I mean, it's really interesting. I remember when I sat at the table with you at a conference out in Austin a few months ago. We kind of chuckled and said, "There's nothing like a great steak for people who love eating meat." So tell us a little about it, because I think it's, again, another one of those great stories about you.
Yeah, we were feeding cattle as an investment, and I was the only person in my family that didn't stay in agriculture. And as I was feeding cattle for investment, or my dad buys cattle for a living, so we bought them cheap, and we got the connections to feed them for cheap. And I remember the one time we had probably $250,000 invested, and we made $1 on the pen of cattle. And they're bought right, fed right, and the packer made more money in the history of the industry per animal, which doesn't make any sense to me. And so there's a lot of corruption within the packer industry. And so we don't give up. So we started going farm to table, and we specialize in a lot of corporate gifts and high-end restaurant quality steaks. And we really just started taking it out there. And my wife's really taken the bull by the horns, per se. And she's so fantastically talented, and our customer service and retention detail is unmatched. And she's built that up into a big business now, where she just opened her own storefront. We have a shipping facility, and it's becoming quite the ordeal. But we still raise our own cattle. We have a cow-calf operation. We do a lot of high-end genetics. So that's where I like to play. If I could do anything, I'd be a broke cowboy all day for sure. And my wife run all the businesses.
Knowing you guys, knowing you and Josh as long as I have, there's always something I like to use the term something always up your sleeve. What's next in the franchising space for you, or is any hints you can give us as far as horsepower? And because I know you guys enjoy what you do. I mean, I'm sure there are days that are headaches, and like you said, it's not always fun. But what's next for horsepower and you and Josh in the franchising space?
Well, we're still on our mission for 25 concepts by 2025. I'll announce it here first. I don't think we've even told this publicly yet, but we did just sign on a fencing franchise brand that will be rebranding and launching here in the next few months, as well as an HVAC company.
Wow!
And so we'll have HVAC later this fall. So that's what's on the immediate radar. Besides that, we're trucking along as fast as we can go, heads down, getting our feet in the mud.
Wow, interesting. Well, we've been talking to Zachary Beutler, founding partner, chief development officer over at Horsepower Brands, Blingle, Mighty Dog Roofing, Groovy Use, iPhone, just to name a few of the brands in the portfolio. Best way to check out the brands, go to the horsepower.com website. Reach out to me. But if anybody has any direct questions for you or wants some information, I guess they can reach out to you on LinkedIn, shoot you a message. Best way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that working with a consultant gives you a lot of advantages. If they come introduced through you, they're really going down a different level of our process because they've been vetted by you, and you're looking at their backgrounds, their financial qualifications, and making sure that they're the right fit for us, and what we're looking for. So I think it's important for people to understand the value that you bring to the equation.
Well, thank you. Well, if anybody's interested in learning more about the service-based businesses, horsepower and inventory, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm Scotty Milas, the host of All Things Considered Franchising, and of course, powered by Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. Zachary, great to have you with us. I hope sometime in the next 3 to 6 months we can get you back, and maybe we even get Josh along, and we can have another great conversation. But I honestly have to tell you that I wish you and Josh and everybody over there the continued success, because as a consultant and working with your developers and your brands and the people that I know that have kind of walked in that path to become business owners are appreciate all your hard work and support that you're giving them.
We appreciate that, Scotty. Can't wait to see you in person one of these days.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Hopefully in our conference coming up. So
yes, sir. We'll be there.
We'll be there. Hey, listen, thanks very much again. Scotty Milas, host of All Things Considered Franchising. You can reach me at scottmilasfranchisecoach.com or give me a call at 860-751-9116. Or fill out my inquiry form on my website. Again, this is Scotty Milas, All Things Considered Franchising. Have a great day, and until next time, we're signing off.